Welcome to Shielded Metal Artworks Welding Class Grade 9. For today, we will discuss about the Mark, Locate, Weld Defects. For the expectations, at the end of the module, you should be able to identify the different welding defects, problems, and remedies. Perform procedures in locating weld defects. Determine location of weld defects and mark weld defects for repair in accordance with the job requirement. First of all, what is weld defects? Weld defects are flaws that occur during the welding process. Welding defects can be described as the irregularities created during welding the metals. These flaws arise as a result of inappropriate welding methods, weaving techniques, and weld design, as well as unsuitable welding processes and the use of incompatible materials. In addition, a lack of understanding of the process, poor workmanship, and inadequate training or inexperience of the welder can also contribute to these irregularities. Welding defects may appear either on the surface of the bead or inside the weld metal. First of all, let us discuss about the different kinds or the common weld defects. Let us have the first one. We have the porosity. When we say porosity, it is like a pinholes found on the weld bead. These pinholes differ in sizes. It can be numerous in numbers depending on the process on how a welder weld and can be found at the surface or underneath the weld bead. Atmospheric contaminants due to lack of shielding gas is the most common cause of porosity. So what are the causes and remedies of porosity defects? Let us discuss first the causes. Because of having too fast travel speed, it can be a cause for a porosity defects. If there are also impurities in the base metal, it can be a cause. Extremely short length of the arc, using the wrong size of electrode, and also if there are presence of moisture on the electrode itself. So, how can we avoid having these defects? So here are the remedies. Number 1, weld at a minimum travel speed to allow the shielding gas to protect the solidified metal during the cooling process. Number 2, before starting to weld, be sure to clean the base metal like oil and corrosions. For examples, the rust and also paint residue. Number 3, always maintain a correct arc length. Number 4, use a proper electrode based on the types and also the size of the base metal. And lastly, you have to store the electrode in an oven to dry the moisture before using it. So, that's all the causes and remedies of porosity. Let us discuss the sputtering. So, what is a sputter or sputtering? These are small molten droplets expelled around the base metal and are not parts of the weldment. This sputtering commonly appears during welding. The following are the causes and remedies to lessen this kind of defect. Number 1 for the causes, is that we use too much current or too high current. We also use too long arc length. And also, there is an arc flow. And maybe we are using improper electrode angle. So, to solve this defect, we should set the amperage according to the size of electrode and classification. We must hold the electrode at normal arc length, which is equivalent on the size or diameter of the electrode core wire. So, it should be half of the size of the electrode or diameter of your electrode. And also, we must use a short arc length and an alternating current rather than the direct current. And lastly, we should hold our electrodes perpendicularly to the workpiece. So we have this kind of work angle that is 90 degrees and also the travel angle which is 70 degrees so that we can have a good result of the weldment. Next one will be about the undercut. So what is an undercut? It is a defect that occurs when weld metal fails to fill a groove melted into the base metal adjacent to the weld toe, either on both sidewalls or on one sidewall of the toe line. How can we lessen having this kind of defect? These are the causes. Number 1, setting the amperage too high. Number 2, faulty electrode manipulation. Number 3, the travel speed is too fast. Number 4, using incorrect electrode size. And lastly, we have an incorrect angle of the electrode. To solve this defect, we should use these remedies. Number 1, adjust the current according to the size of the metal and electrode used. Number 2, use accepted welding technique with moderate movement and ensure that the electrode should extend to the toe line. Number 3, reduce electrode travel speed. It should be in moderate. Select electrode to be used according to the size of the metal and the type of it. And lastly, we have to maintain proper angle of electrode perpendicular to the axis of the weld. Next one will be all about the poor penetration. So what is a poor penetration? Poor penetration occurs when the weld metal does not fully extend through the joint. Below are the causes and remedies to poor penetration. Let's discuss first the causes. Number 1, using a too low amperage in which there is not enough heat to properly melt the metal and electrode. Number 2, incorrect electrode size and type. Number 3, travel speed moves too quickly, which does not permit enough metal to be deposited in the joint. Number 4, faulty preparations of plate on the root opening for the grooves. So how can we solve this defect? These are the remedies. Number 1, set the current into desired amperage as to what size of electrode and base metal. Number 2, use smaller electrode to adjust to the groove size and electrode with deep penetration. Usually, we use the electrode 6011. Number 3, when traveling, ensure that the minimum movement to allow the proper fusion between the electrode and the base metal. And lastly, maintain proper separation at the joint root between the workpieces based on the size of the core wire of the electrode to be used. Next one will be all about the lack of fusion. Lack of fusion is an improper melting and mixing of weld metal. It can appear between the root face of the two bevel plates at the joint root. This creates a gap in the joint that is not filled with molten metal. Below are the reasons why there are lack of fusion and its remedies. First one is that we have too low current. Number 2, we have travel speed that is too fast. Number 3, we are having excessive presence of rust in the base metal. Number 4, faulty preparation of plates on the root opening for grooves. These are the remedies. Number 1, adjust current to normal as to what size of base metal and electrode to produce heat to properly melt the metal. Number 2, when traveling, ensure the minimum movement to allow the proper fusion between electrode and the base metal and allowing enough molten metal to be deposited in the joint. Number 3, make sure to clean the base metal well from the presence of rust before performing weld, most especially using other kinds of metal. Number 4, mild steel can be weldable over rust, but excessive rust can cause lack of fusion. And lastly, we have to maintain separation at the joint root between the workpieces based on the size of the core wire of the electrode to be used. Lastly, we have the slug inclusion. When we say slug, these are the residue when we do the weldment. So, slug inclusion, it is a non-metallic material entrapped in the weld metal due to fast travel speed and long arc length and are easily noticeable by our naked eye. Below are some of the causes and remedies of slug inclusion. For the causes, we have the arc length is too short. We also have improper electrode manipulation and improper cleaning of each bit, and lastly, travel speed is too fast. To solve this problem, we have these remedies. Number 1, we have to maintain normal arc length during the welding. Number 2, we must use accepted weaving technique with moderate movement and ensure that electrodes should extend to the toe line. Number 3, chip off the slug, and if there is a presence of slug inclusion, remove it before welding the next pass to avoid the reoccurrence of the next pass. And lastly, we have to maintain normal travel speed to allow the shielding gas to protect the molten metal while solidifying. So those are the 6 common weld defects while performing the welding process. We still have 3 common weld defects left to be discussed on the next video. Thank you for watching.